Hello and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates 2020 on WCMU. I'm David Nicholas. This year we are speaking with our guests virtually, joined this time by Jason Crum. He is the Libertarian candidate for the Michigan House District 104. That is an open seat in this upcoming election. Thanks very much, sir, for joining us. And in our first moment or two, if you could give us a little bit of a background about you, your background, and the experience you bring to the campaign.
Certainly. I appreciate you having me on this morning. So my background is mainly in radio broadcasting for 30 years, plus 30 years. I've hosted different radio shows around northern Michigan and have just gotten to know the community quite well. Recently, in March of this year, I left that field and still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I'm currently driving a bus for our local transit system here in Traverse City. Trying to finish my degree through through NMC, Northwestern Michigan College. And I don't know, it just became the whole reason I joined this race. I jumped in was because I wanted to give the 104th a different choice than just the standard Democrat or Republican candidates.
Very good. Then as candidate in the time running up now to the November election, what have you and also the voters that you've been speaking with identified as the key issues, the most important concerns for this campaign?
Currently, during our COVID-19 outbreak, the key issue from the people that I've spoken with all seems to center around the governor and her use of executive powers to, the mask orders, the executive orders, and things like that. Some people are quite in favor of them, thinking that she's done a fantastic job in helping Michigan avoid a worse problem. Some people, I'd say the majority of people are not very happy with her, at least in this area. And so it's trying to find, for me, it's trying to find that balance of what should and can a governor do, and what should the people be able to expect from the governor.
And in that context, we note that there are several legal wranglings that are going on right now in regards to the 1945 law and the governor's use of executive powers. So you and other candidates are kind of watching what will potentially take place yet between the current legislature and the November election. Then the voters giving you a sense and you a sense of how to, as you noted, put a better balance between the authority of the governor and the authority of the people. If we broaden that to look at the overall circumstances of COVID-19 and what it has done to the state as a whole, your district and region in specific, how would you look to the issue of how we address emergencies and crises like this in the future? What are the voters looking for? What are you as a candidate proposing to do to put us in a better place to, public health-wise, economically, come through this in the future?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is understand, even as angry as the voters seem to be in the 104th, the governor needs certain emergency powers that has to be in place for times of emergency. It's that 1945 law which gets in the way and just keeps letting her expand it. Just the other day, she extended it again. At some point, you have to be able to say the emergency is over. Perhaps that's the wrong way to say it. The need for ruling by executive order has to be over. The emergency can stay in place, but at some point there has to be a way to get our duly elected representatives back into the fold of making the decisions. And so I think it's finding that balance. The first thing, I agree with the voters up here that 1945 law that just gives her the ability to extend that executive power unilaterally with, in a limitless way, that has to be dealt with. And so whether that happens through the courts or whether it has to happen legislatively, I think that's the first thing that has to happen. But we've got to be able to say, that governor needs to have those executive powers for a time, for a season, because the need to move quickly back in March was there. And at this point, we're in October, and the legislature should be more involved than it is now. So it's just finding that balance. No one's going to be happy in the end. There are people that think she should have this power continually as long as she needs it, and there are people who say she should never have had it in the first place. But it's finding that balance that's going to be best for the people, for the state.
Jason Crum is running on the Libertarian ticket for the open seat in Michigan's 104th House District. From that platform then, and the planks of the platform for the Libertarian Party, if we look at the issues of how we are managing public health and how we would deal with, in this case, a very specific economic reshaping, restart, and re-engagement because of the circumstances of COVID-19, what would your approach be to examining and looking at and proposing to deal with both of those fronts?
Well, as a libertarian, and here's where I break from the party a little bit, quite a bit actually. In fact, I view myself as more of an independent than a libertarian in a lot of cases, but the libertarian platform would be small government and get the government out of the way and let businesses rise and fall as they normally would. I'm not opposite that. I'm not into the Keynesian economic philosophy, but I do think the government has a role to play in promoting strong ways for businesses to succeed, and through different tax policies, and I do believe in limiting regulations, and perhaps it's time to look at some of those regulations that are in place and set those aside for a time, and just give businesses a chance to recover before you start burdening them with what the government thinks is best for them. So again, that's a real fine line, and I'm not going to make everybody happy up here because I don't subscribe to one of the two major philosophies. I'm a common sense solutions kind of guy, and think there's a line down that middle that is that compromise that everybody always talks about, but then you look in this current political climate and no one really wants to talk about it. Everybody's in their little camp, and that's the way it's going to be. But I think there are solutions there if people are just willing to be intellectually honest and say, okay, maybe some more liberal ideas are better, maybe some conservative ideas are better, and they can work together.
And what about from the perspective of the public health crisis at this time, healthcare in general, and what we have and what voters or you as a candidate see as changes that would be made? What proposals would you have?
Healthcare in general, that is such a tricky issue depending on who you talk to up here. Some people are really happy with what they have, and some people are utterly disgusted with what they have. And I think you saw it back with the Affordable Care Act. There was a lot of well-meaning people trying to find a solution that served the most amount of people. Some areas worked, some areas didn't work. There's some aspects of it that people really like. There's some aspects of it that people really hate. And so again, I think it's finding solutions that remove the government as much as possible. Small government, limited government, get them out of the way and let the free markets work as much as you can let the free markets work. But again, I do think there is a role for government to be in there, because you also have to have those protections. And without those, then people are going to fall through the cracks. And so it's finding a nice balance that works. And again, you're not going to make everybody happy, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I think that's the problem you saw with the Affordable Care Act, was that it was an all or nothing proposition. You either get everything in this 1,000-page document or you get nothing. And it doesn't have to be that way. I think you can take it in smaller steps.
About 3 minutes left with you, sir, and another major area where, along with the public health and the economic impact, of course, this has played a huge role when it comes to schools and education. The disruption of the past year, the disjointed start and blended ways of teaching this year. The voters, and again, your views and proposals on how we look at education, how to pay for it, and what we need to offer, and how best to serve the students moving forward from here.
Paying for it, I think the state, I think Michigan has been pretty good in their financing level up till now. So I don't see any need for major changes in that. As we go post-COVID or current COVID, where we are now, here in northern Michigan, in the 104th alone, we've got several school districts and everyone is doing something a little different. And I actually really like that approach. The Traverse City schools are doing something different from the Kingsley schools, and each one is doing what they think is best for the students. It's government that's as close to the people as it can get. I mean, you've got local school boards making these decisions, which is, I think, better for each individual community than having Lansing dictate what's going to happen, or beyond that, the federal government handing something down that the state must follow. So I like that approach. I don't know if it's the perfect approach, but from a libertarian standpoint, I like that more local aspect of government making those choices for each individual school district.
Any particular challenges then that folks have brought to your attention, even with the varied approach, concerns that they have, or changes that they would favor, adjustments to the system as it is moving forward from here?
Again, it depends on who you talk to. Everybody's got a different idea. We've got some school districts that are really promoting online-only classes. We've got some that are doing this hybrid mix. Here in Kingsley, my hometown, they gave you a choice of being in school or not in school. And it seems like no matter who you speak to, they're going to latch on to one of those aspects and not like it. So again, it's a solution that has to happen. That isn't going to make everybody happy, but we've got to, as a local community, decide what's best for the kids. So being able to have that multi-tier approach, sure, the people that are scared of COVID and don't want their kids in school have to have that ability to keep them out. But then they're going to be facing the people that say, oh, COVID's not a big deal, we've got to put the kids back in school. You're not going to make everybody happy, but people have to relax and calm down and realize that kids can be educated in multiple ways, and a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't have to be the solution right now during COVID. Once we get past this, send them all back, get that formality back in place. But right now, I think people just have to understand that there's some fluidity in all of this, and you've got to be accepting of other people's levels of fears or no fears of confidence.
Less than half a minute with you, but we do want to have time for your final message you would want to leave with the voters as they get set to go to the polls.
So for the 104th Grand Traverse County, I would just like to point out that we've got two other guys running, Dan O'Neill on the Democrat side, John Roth on the Republican side. Both of those guys are spending gobs and gobs of other people's money to try and convince you to vote for them so that they can show you how responsible they're going to be with other people's money. It's kind of hypocritical to me. You're going to get the same old solutions from the same old tired parties if you vote for one of these guys. Here I am. I'm giving you something different. I'm giving you an independent, middle of the road, where I think most Americans, most citizens of Grand Traverse County actually fit, is right there in the middle, saying, yeah, there's some good ideas on both sides. Let's see how we can make it all work together. So I'm offering you that alternative rather than the same old two-party system.
And we certainly appreciate your time, not only speaking with us, but also to the voters directly in District 104. Stay safe and good luck with the rest of the campaign. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We've been speaking with Jason Crum, the Libertarian candidate in the open seat race for Michigan's House District 104. A reminder that all qualifying candidates for these races we're covering were invited to participate in our series. I'm David Nicholas. We hope you will join us again, and we urge you to go out, use your right to vote Tuesday, November 3rd.